If there is anything that you guys would like to add, please pop it in the comments. Feel free to express how you feel in this moment, and I'll be happy to have that discussion. So this isn't just going to be so much me talking about what I believe and everything about, my thoughts and feelings. It's also going to be about you guys, because as we will know by now, that it isn't just one individual that brings this change, it's all of us. So I'm just going to really quickly stand at my desk because I feel like standing now. So whilst we're all getting settled in and ready to begin this stream, this session today, I'm excited to, just get yourselves comfortable, get a drink, etc., and we'll get ready. So, make sure I don't knock everything over as well. Perfect. So, Sarah, welcome. I can see that you've tuned in as well. I'm extremely grateful for you being here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me just move this out the way. Let's see if we can bring a bit more light over. Beautiful. So I have, obviously, and as you will begin to notice, I've started to get the calling to really, bring myself out here and start talking about some of the things that is going to be important for all of us. So you probably see me going live a little bit more frequently over the next couple of weeks, perhaps. But let's just have a look here. So, Gurpreet, thank you so much for tuning in as well. I appreciate you. Can't hear any music. This is fancy. It is indeed, Jade, right? It's a very, very fancy way of doing things. So I appreciate it. Perfect sound, nothing wrong. Sound and music is good. Fantastic. Andrew, welcome, my friend. I appreciate you being here massively. So whilst we allow the other couple of people to tune in, if you do want to grab a pen and paper as well, that might be important, because if I say anything and you feel in your heart and soul that you resonate with it and you want to add something to it, feel free to write that down and then pop it in the comments later on, because I will stop periodically, and just let me know. We can start discussing and talking about those things. So like I say, and this is, like I said, a kind of a new way of doing things, as you can notice as you guys are tuning in. Let me just make sure. Yeah, see, look, like, there's different ways of doing it. I can move stuff around, like, it's all very fancy. We're getting we're really taking it to the next level with these things. I love it, Paul. Welcome, brother. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. So okay, right, let's just make sure. And as you guys are tuning in, feel free to drop a like on the stream. That actually helps it with the algorithm to get out there. If not, that's totally fine. For the next couple of seconds, we'll be getting started. So,
SWB audio capture not registered.
Grab some more water. Okay. James Mallin's 2.0, I love it. Alright guys, well, what I want to do now is, we might as well begin. Let's get started. So as you can see with some of the topics that I've put up above, I really wanted to start to talk to you guys about some things that I believe are important with this idea of ascension and moving forwards. Because just like myself and Emily discussed yesterday when we went live, to me there are two different aspects that are important right now. There is your internal world and there is your external world. So again, if you have a pen and paper, please feel free to write these things down and really make notes of these, okay? So there's your internal world and your external world. Now, if we look over here at number 1, you'll notice that the first thing I've put here is the truth of the past. Well, that can actually be shifted to talk about the truth of your past. Because for a lot of people, I'm just going to turn the music down a little bit. For a lot of people, there has been this consistent narrative of negative experiences through their lives, right? They've experienced trauma, they've experienced abuse on all levels, energetic, physical, verbal, etc. There's been this consistent path of pain and suffering, right? This consistent movement through life of feeling these negative effects and feeling this pain that has gone through their whole life with them. But what I want to suggest, and write this down if you are listening to this, if you've got a pen and paper, is that the pain of your past holds a certain truth, right? So we're going to really dive in deeply here. So let's do this together.
SWB
The
audio
pain
capture
of your
not
past
registered.
holds a certain truth. For example, for some of you that have experienced the absolute darkest moments and the absolute darkest experience that this world has to offer, I would like to suggest to you that you're actually the brightest of us. Right? For those of you that have experienced the most painful and dark experiences, I'd like to suggest that you are the brightest of us. Why? Because in feeling or experiencing those painful, dark, and really difficult moments of life, what you actually get provided with is the opportunity to transmute that darkness. Okay? You get given the opportunity to transmute that darkness. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that for a lot of people who are going through life and they're perhaps in some circumstances going through the motions, or they have felt this calling within, right? For a lot of you who are watching this now, you will have felt that massive calling within. You'll have felt like there's something that you're destined to do, that there's something you need to do on this planet, that there's just something that is pulling at your heart and pulling at your soul. Well, in order for that soul mission or that soul calling to be realized, there has to be some breadcrumbs. Right? In order for you to discover your soul's purpose, there's got to be a certain breadcrumbs. There's got to be a certain trail that will lead you to that ultimate knowing and that ultimate soul position. I'd like to suggest that it isn't the experiences themselves that are the breadcrumbs, but it's what you do with the experiences that are the breadcrumbs to your soul mission. For example, I like this analogy, and what's beautiful is what I won't say, but some of the individuals watching at the minute, and Gurpreet, I appreciate that massively. Thank you so much. You know, all of you inspire me as well. That's why I'm doing this. You know, is because I'm inspired by those of you who stand for the light and who stand for a better world. Every viewpoint is a choice of perspective. I totally agree with you. You know, it becomes a choice. Absolutely. So in understanding this idea, when you have an experience and you take that experience and start to actually ask the questions as to why you experienced it, you can find a deeper truth. So for somebody who has experienced nothing but abusive masculine figures in their life, they can ask themselves why. Why? Why me? Why have I experienced these things? Why did I deserve to experience these things? And when you dive into the why, what you actually find is it's not because you deserved to experience it, it's because you were worthy. I'm going to pause there, right? You didn't experience the darkest places of this world because you deserved it, because it was a punishment. You experienced them because you were worthy. Because you were worthy of taking the mantle of responsibility on planet Earth and doing something with it. You were worthy of holding a space, or should I say, you are worthy of holding a space for tens of thousands or if not millions of people, for you to guide them and show them how they can empower themselves from the exact same negative experiences, of which we then transmute it from the word negative. Okay, now they're stopping me. They're bringing me back. There's a computer voice that keeps coming in. Interesting. I'm not sure why that is. We'll keep going. I'm not sure why that is, but maybe it'll sort itself out. But in going back to those negative experiences, the purpose of it is because when you start to look into it at a deeper level, what you actually find is that you are worthy. Now, as they paused and stopped me from moving forwards, okay, hang on a second, let me just test this then. Okay, yeah, thank you for saying that. Actually, I just heard it myself. Alright, tell you what we'll do. We will just do this. Hopefully you can just put up with my voice alone. I'll have to turn the music off, that's fine. It should have stopped now, I think. It must be coming from somewhere on my computer, but I can't find it at the minute. But I appreciate you guys sharing that very much. Let me know if it did. Okay. Amy, welcome. Thank you for being here. If it does, guys, if it does carry on going, just let me know, and yeah, I'll have a look at it. But anyway, going back to what I was saying, what they stopped me there because what I actually was going to do was keep it on the same plane. But what we have to do is we have to start to look at the experiences of our lives, negative or positive, from different dimensional planes. Now we're going to start to take it. Welcome, Andrew. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate being here. It's pretty fancy. So what we start to do is let's take that negative experience of in someone's life, all they've experienced is a negative, abusive and controlling masculine figure, right? It doesn't matter about the label, but a masculine figure. Well, you take that experience and you bring it here and you start to ask yourself why. Why have I experienced this negative experience? Why have I experienced so many abusive, nasty masculine figures? Well, once we take the why and we bring it over here to say that you are worthy, what we're actually doing is we're separating this why into dimensions, right? On a third dimensional level, for a lot of people that might be difficult to hear, right? Because then they say to themselves, oh my goodness, what you're saying, that I had to experience all those things, that it was pushed onto me, that it was attacking me. Not quite. What I'm actually saying is that from a soul level, from who you truly are within yourself, you were worthy. Because I'd like to suggest that it is only the brightest souls that come into this world and experience the darkest nights who are here to do the greatest things, right? So it really is about having a look and understanding that as you start to move through the exploration of your internal world and you look at your past experiences, that you find the truth within them, i.e. what you start to do is realizing that you've experienced all this pain and darkness. You ask yourself why, you realize that actually it's because when you find the solutions, when you understand the purpose, you can then go on to help and guide millions of other people to do the exact same thing. Of which, would you not suggest, or would you not think, that that's the pathway to learning through love and to a path of love, compassion, unity and light on earth, right? So let me just bring this on a personal level, and welcome. I think I haven't seen you comment, Vicky, but welcome if you're here. I appreciate you being here. So coming from my personal experiences myself, when I was a child, a lot of the time I had this massive oppression, right? People were trying to tell me what to do. I was bullied, I was picked on, I was ripped apart. Everything I did wasn't good enough. Everything that I did was either childish or pathetic or stupid or girly or whatever. And so, as you'll notice with my face as well, I had to adopt this certain darkness and fire as a defense mechanism. So what I actually did, so let's just take me as a teenager, bullied and attacked and picked upon in many ways. Well, I took that, I asked myself, why? Why am I experiencing these things? Why me, right? And I changed the why me to why not me. Why shouldn't I experience this? What's the purpose? What's the reason for it? And when I asked those questions, that's when all of this stopped. I'm going to pause here. All of this stopped. Why? Because I got the lesson. I ceased to need the bully anymore. I ceased to need the attack and the persecution and the aggression from other people. Because guess what? Those experiences of being bullied and oppressed and attacked for who I was actually led me to exactly what it is you're watching right now. It gave me the strength, it gave me the willpower, the conviction, the choice to come from a different place. Now granted, as I mentioned, I actually went to a much darker place before I went to the light, but I now also have an appreciation of the darkness and its power to defend the self. Now, okay, when we start talking about light and dark, this is like a 10-hour thing we can start talking about. But for this one example, I used the darkness as a defense mechanism, but it wasn't ultimately who I was, right? Please, guys, if you're listening to this and you've got a pen and paper, please write this down. I adopted the darkness as a defense mechanism, but it wasn't who I truly was. Who I truly am is who you see now. And now the ironic thing of this is there will be some people in my ancient past, right, of my earthly James Mallin's past, who will still have a negative perception of me because of the version of me that they'd experienced at that moment in time. So it might even be hard for them to believe that I'm this person now because they've only experienced one facet of who I was back in my ancient past, right? So for those of you who are listening to this, hey Frankie, hey Vicky, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I appreciate that as well. I've decided to, get really fancy with things. So they only perceived one singular version of me. And this is also going to link in with guilt. I'm going to pause here. This also links in with guilt, because I know for a fact that a lot of you who have experienced such incredible things in the past, such immense experiences in the past, you have guilt, right? You feel guilt, you experience guilt, you have guilt for who you were, what you did, the choices you made, without realizing that that version of you that made those choices or did those things was just one facet of you, right? And now, whether if you've chosen to do so, now that you've moved into this present version of yourself now, you're a completely different human being, right? You are a completely different human being. Okay, so why are we talking about these things, and why is this stuff important for the future? Well, this stuff is important for the future because guess what? The systems of control that we're saying very gently, that have been around us for so many years, have perpetuated the guilt, the shame, the attack, the hopelessness, the fear, right? They've perpetuated those ideas to keep you from understanding who and what you truly are. They've kept you in a position where you could no longer understand, or should I say pursue, the truest version of you. Why? Because of all of these societal ideas that stopped you from really expressing yourself, right? The amount of people in my past that wanted to box me in this idea and stick a label across my head and stick this across my head to try to define me was immense. But guess what? They could never define me because I wouldn't allow it to happen. No matter what label they wanted to put on me, no matter what they wanted to say about me, I knew at my core that who I really truly wanted to be was a being of love. Right? And here's the kicker. Not a being of love for anybody else but myself. I pause again. Not for anybody else but myself. Why? Because the next set of lessons that I personally had to understand was the fact that I had to realize that I could go within and change. I had to realize that I had to honor myself, I had to look after myself, I had to stand for myself. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't be anywhere near the person I am to do the things that I am doing in the world now, no matter how big or small they appear to anybody, right? So what am I sharing? How does this benefit you? How can this help you in the future? It can help you in the future because and please write this down, no matter how you define yourself right now in this moment, it doesn't matter. Why? Because you can redefine yourself every single moment of the day. You could have 10 people say you're worthless, you're pathetic, you're stupid, you're this, you're that, you're whatever. They could say whatever they want about you. But if you choose to redefine yourself, if you choose in your heart and soul that you're not going to be that person anymore, that you aren't that person anymore, you instantaneously cease to be that person. Now let me pause. Because of course, to a certain degree, it takes willpower, it takes conviction, and it takes this idea of standing once more in your own truth. Because in order for us to carry on moving through life with integrity and with inner strength, you have to stand for yourself. And this is why, and I know a few people, and thank you everyone for watching, by the way, I appreciate you guys being here. I know for a lot of people who saw my post this morning, one thing I said in that is, unconditional starts with you, then unconditional moves to us, and then unconditional love, and I channeled it so I can't even remember, that spreads out to the world. Why? Because unconditional love starts with you. And so many people are talking about unconditional love when it comes to giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving and giving with no expectations. Okay, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying that that's not how it is. Trust me, I promise you, I am not saying you are wrong. But what I'd like to suggest, that in order for unconditional love to truly flourish, in order for you to give truly without expectation, you have to nurture yourself first. Because if you were, how can I give an example? Give me an example that isn't grotesque. If you were caged in a room and somebody were, I'll take the example of the world right now. If you were consistently being attacked with, you should do this, you have to do that, you should do this, and they're constantly trying to take away your free will, constantly trying to take away your freedom of choice, well, unconditional love then has to rebalance itself, because that person, that entity, those beings aren't giving you unconditional love, are they? Right? They're not giving you unconditional love. So how can unconditional love flourish if it doesn't go both ways? How can unconditional love even be a concept if it doesn't flow both ways? Duality, balance, the understanding that give and take, right? It has to go both ways. So if there's somebody in your life who isn't providing you with unconditional love, is your love for them unconditional? I'd like to suggest it isn't. It's actually conditional, because it's conditional on the basis that they treat you with love and respect. Because if they don't, and this is a very, very, very deep topic, which we're going to perhaps cover on a different video, and maybe it'll just be unconditional love at the top and that's it, right? Unconditional love itself, in order to flourish, has to be honoured on all levels, right? For example, if I'm with somebody or around somebody and they consistently every single day attack me and do not treat me with unconditional love, guess what? An expectation's going to come in and I'm going to leave. I'm going to pause there. If I am not treated with unconditional love, as I will attempt to the greatest of my human ability to treat that other person with unconditional love, I will leave. Because how much are you going to take? How much are you willing to sacrifice before you make a different choice? Okay, so something for you guys to think about. Anyway, let me have a look at the comments here, because I'm so grateful for all of you being here. Andrew says, you strong soul, come to this plane, take the suffering to see your strength, understand and balance. I love it, and I totally agree with you. You know, this is it. And actually, Andrew, I will, in fact, talk about that when I come to the ancient energy aspect. But that's, I totally agree with you. Vicky says, I perceive you as a being of love, though, towards us. I love it, Christy. And I am. And okay, yeah, I know. I don't like talking about myself in those ways, because I like to stay humble. But I am, because it's one of my greatest intentions. Right, one of my greatest intentions is to be a space, a loving, unconditional space for those who seek to change and evolve in their lives. Nicole Prumpeller, did I pronounce that right? Prumpeller? Thank you so much. I appreciate that you're finding it interesting. Chrissy says, but it will manifest once persisted in. But it will. As and ends with us. I agree with you totally. Sarah says, honouring myself first has been my biggest lesson this year. I love it, and this is one of the biggest things, because when you honour yourself, guess what? You can give to other people on an even greater level, right? This is the thing that a lot of people misunderstand, and this is why I talk about unconditional love the way I do. Because if you love yourself unconditionally at the highest levels, guess what? You can love even more, right? I honour myself at the highest levels so that I can go out into the world and love people on a higher level. That's how it works. Barb, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. So self-care, I totally agree with you. Vicky says, indeed, we have to nurture ourselves first. I totally agree with you. Christy's infinite love, I love it. Keeping you distracted, I agree with you. Which is another interesting point, brother, and I'll talk about that momentarily. I gave so much is draining and builds resentment over time. Exactly. And here's another thing, you see, and I appreciate you sharing that as well, Sarah, because this is the thing, right? If somebody isn't treating you with love in return, guess what's going to happen? Resentment and anger will kick in. I'm going to pause again. Write this down. If it is not give and take, if it is not balanced, guess what will happen? Resentment and anger will kick in. Why? Because there is a certain expectation. right? I wouldn't want to be around certain individuals when they're constantly punching me in the mouth and making my face bleed, right? It wouldn't be very good for me. I wouldn't be able to do many posts very easily because guess what? I'm not in a position where I'm loved and honoured and safe. There's another big word, right? Write this down. Because I wouldn't be in a safe environment. Because a lot of you... Okay, sorry. A lot of you who might relate to this part, for a very long time, you haven't been in a safe environment, right? You have not been in an environment that has allowed you to fully be who you are, that's allowed you to fully express yourself and fully embody your ultimate self, because you didn't feel safe. You don't feel safe. So, as I mentioned about the internal and the external world, which is a fantastic movement on, so thank you so much for that, Sarah. Your external world is also important. And actually, while I'm doing this, I'm just going to do this too, so that you guys can know where we're at. Cool. And then I think it's this one. Yep. So when it comes to our external environment, so we're moving on to future actions now. When it comes to our external environment, it's important to understand that as we go through these processes, what is around you is important. I'm not going to show you because I can't take it off, but I have this entire room to myself, right? This is my sacred space. This is my space to embody and feel and process what I need to without being around anybody else, right? Doesn't mean I don't want to be around anybody else, but to me this is important because to a large degree, how are you supposed to fully understand what is going on in your life if you don't have the space to process it? Which, when we come to, I have to remember, this one here, right? Future actions. When it comes to understanding your future actions and what to do in the future, I would suggest, please write this down, to make your internal and your external world your highest priority. What do I mean? First of all, finding a sacred space, right? Finding a space where you can explore your truth and where you can sit down and have a moment to ask yourself what is important to you. Because if you don't have that space to ask yourself what is important to you, then how are you ever going to nurture your internal world? Right? How are you going to ever nurture your internal world if you haven't got that space to do so? And I think that this is where a lot of people really struggle. And I'm actually going to use the ideas of mothers and fathers, right? In a lot of cases, I've spoken to a lot of mothers and fathers who feel so incredibly guilty for desiring to have time away from their children, even if it's a day or a couple of days where they go spend it with their, grandma, grandparents, whatever. They feel extremely guilty, and this is actually a much deeper topic that I will, because a few of you might resonate with this. But they feel guilty for doing so without realising that actually, and you may disagree or agree, this is entirely up to you, but for you to be the best version of yourself, how are you supposed to do that when you have zero time to process what's happening in your life? So actually, the most honourable thing and the best thing you can do for your children is make sure that you're in a position where you're 100% happy, whole, and connected with your ultimate truth. Do you guys agree? Do you feel like I'm being unreasonable by saying these things, or that I'm wrong? Because for you to be the best version of yourself for them, do you not need to have the space to understand what it means to be the best version of yourself? Because I know that there are a lot of mothers and fathers out there who are burying themselves in the ground, quite literally running themselves into the ground without having a single moment or second to themselves. And they feel guilty for the idea that they want to have a moment or second to themselves. And actually what I'd like to do is talk about... Sorry, Christy, do you mean I wouldn't know how to do that through the process I'm doing? But one day we can certainly have a look at that, absolutely. Sorry, I'll go to the comments and I'll finish this bit. So one really important thing, and I've actually experienced this with a beautiful soul, and here's the thing, right? There was one soul who I'd worked with, and they were beautiful beyond belief. They had an incredible soul, an incredible energy, and incredible consciousness, but they had resentment towards their child because they were always there. Some of you might think, oh my goodness, how terrible, how can they be like that? I totally agreed with them. Or should I actually change that sorry? I totally understood them. Because how can you process what's going on in your life when you have zero time to yourself? And as Sarah profoundly said, I know Vic, Christy, and I appreciate that so much. I'd love to chat with you, definitely, 100% about that. But how can you have complete and utter peace within yourself if you don't have the time? Anyway, so the point being that resentment, and here's where I talk about the safe space, right? So whenever it comes to the stuff that we do, and to me, the future actions of this earth, is holding a safe space. Because there are a lot of people who have thoughts and feelings, right? But they don't have a safe space to express them, right? Parents that have like anger and resentment and frustration because they don't have any time to themselves, and they feel this towards their children because their children need a huge amount of time and attention. Right? What's the best thing to do? If that is what's happening in your life, take a break. Find a way. Find a way to take a break, right? Whether you are a mother and father and you look after your children together, whether you're a single mother or a single father, whatever, find a way, right? Because this is how we begin to nurture these deeper relationships. Let me tell you this. There are probably 5.5 billion people who have suffered because their parents didn't do this in the past. Right? There are probably 5.5 billion people on this planet, probably more, probably less, who knows, who did suffer because of this exact reason, this exact topic. Right? So it is important to understand that in all cases, honour yourself. And guess what? The more you honour yourself, the more you'll give to your children. Your children will notice it. And they'll notice it and they'll say, oh my goodness, Mummy, Daddy, wow, we can play more. And I noticed you're different. You've got more energy, etc. Right? You feels different. Okay? So, Vicky says, it's hard to give time to yourself when you're a single parent, but that's a lesson. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. And here's the thing, for a lot of people, they might feel that it is impossible. And obviously, I mean, Vicky, you're an angel walking Earth. You're an absolute incredible being walking Earth. So, you would have a perspective, Vicky, you'd have a perspective that you could share here that would benefit so many more people. So again, and this was the beautiful thing with Emily yesterday when we did our live on Twitch. She had a perspective that was absolutely incredible, truly, truly incredible. But, by myself, I can't cover them all. But I agree with you, Vicky. Sarah says it teaches them to put themselves first too. I absolutely agree with you. Right? What is the best way to teach your children to honour themselves is to do it yourself. Right? What's the best way to teach your children to honour themselves? Do it yourself. Right? And they'll know. They will know. Barb says, I'm a single mom. I find this... I love it. Awesome, Barb. Well, perhaps, Barb, you might be able to share... maybe there's a conversation there, that might be able to help. I understand everybody has different circumstances, so please know, I totally get that. To Vicky, Barb, my love to both of you. I know that circumstances aren't always easy. I'm not a father. Isn't it a little bit hypocritical for me to talk about something that perhaps I know nothing about? But all I can talk about is from love, and if it resonates, and if you can evolve this concept yourself, please do so. Barb says, totally resonates as a parent. I no longer hold guilt for myself. I love it. That's beautiful. I love to hear it. I love it as well, Christy. Definitely. We'll have to, Christy, this is an important thing, because obviously as a mother yourself, perhaps you'll have really important aspects to share. Christy says, I chose to create that self-environment in this instance. I won't allow that to be put on hold any longer. I love it so much. Paul says, I hold myself to the highest standard for the reason I'd forced me to evolve, allows me to give the best version of myself to others in need of my love and light. And I totally agree with you, brother. And you take the weight of the world on your shoulders, and I know you do. It's an honour to know you, my friend, and you honouring yourself is the best way to help others, Barb says, yin and yang of everything. I totally agree. I love it. All right, guys, so let me just... you might think that this is... I like doing it. It's my little excited, geeky thing, just to green things off as we go along. So, okay. Now, I'm actually going to connect 2 and 3 together, right? Because when it comes to understanding these future actions and the ancient energy of the past, I'd like to suggest that a lot of you, hey Anya, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. For a lot of us who have got past life connections where we've connected to versions of ourselves in the past, which I'd like to suggest you all have, right? Facets of yourself, of who you were in a past and an ancient past. Well, as we come to understanding what do we do in the future, to me it's important to look to the past. Because in the past, in a very real sense, we were more advanced than what we are now. Why? Well, here we start talking about the deeper reasons as this system of control that's around us, the certain beings who wanted to control planet Earth for whatever reason. I mean, it is what it is. They have their reasons for doing so, but it's our job and our mission to move ourselves back. So I thought the pigeon was coming from Facebook one second. So to understand what we do in the future, to me, is to understand as to what you want the future to look like. Because in a very real sense, in a lot of cases, if you want the future to be a place of love, where we learn in love and not in pain, if you have a pen and paper, please write this down, right? Throughout our lives, we have learned through pain. Now it's time to learn through love. And as you begin to learn through love, what you'll find is that you don't have to suffer or be at the hands of anybody who wants to cause you pain. You can learn in a loving way. How do I know this? Because I've practiced it all this year. With people I've been around, with people I've been involved with, I've practiced learning through love this entire year. No matter what come at me, and again, this is another excellent point that Emily had shared yesterday, one of the things, I'm strong enough within myself to take that and also hold a space of love for somebody to decide what their truth is. But at the same time, I learned through love, right? I held a loving space. It was difficult. Again, I was learning it still, so I was still learning this process, but I held a loving space for the other person to understand what is true for them. This, to me, is learning through love, and it takes a very powerful being. If I don't blow my own trumpet, just whatever, you guys decide for yourselves. To me, it takes a very powerful individual to get to that point. Guess what? You are all just as powerful, if not more powerful. And all it takes is understanding, as we said in number 1, taking everything from the past, understanding it in all of its entirety, and then moving forward in the future and using those things from the past to guide, help, and nurture those who are seeking it. So bear with me, because I feel like sitting now. I should probably find a better way of doing this. Let me just lower this down. It's very, very fancy today, isn't it? Let me just bring this down. So again, when it comes to understanding the actions of the future, to me, it is getting yourself to a position where you're honouring yourself to the highest degree, and then you can go on to honour others. Now, when I talk about ancient energy, and ironically this right here, if I can share that, is one of them. For those of you that are new to my content, you can ask me privately. This is Excalibur, right? I myself have been connecting only in the past year and a half with lives I've had as a Viking, lives I've had as a native Indian, and lives I've had as an Egyptian, and also other lives, potentially, that I may have lived or I may have been connected to. Why is this important? Because many of you who are watching this right now have had the exact same lives, the exact same consciousnesses, the exact same positions. And I'd actually like to recommend to some of you, I am, as you can see, I'm about just under half of the way through this book. I'd like to recommend this book, The Secret Places of the Lion. Because a few years back, I had a lion tattooed on my throat, on my neck, before I started doing any of this stuff. And now, as I'm starting to explore Egypt and King Solomon and the Romans and everything moving forwards, I realise that the lion has a much more symbolic idea than I first thought. So, understanding the future actions that we take is actually coming from an ancient past. Because in that ancient past, guess what? We were leaders of light. And by the way, for those of you who are listening, and I mean this with the absolute deepest love, please listen to what I've just said. You were a leader of light. because this is not exclusive to me, and this is why I always hesitate when I talk about past lives that I have had a disgusting amount of synchronicities around, because it isn't just subjective to me. It's not just about my grandiose idea of, oh, I was this person or that person. None of that matters. It doesn't matter. If I'm to connect to a being from the past, i.e. King Arthur, what I end up doing is asking myself, okay, if I connect to that energy, how do I use it now? I'm going to pause again. If I connect to that energy, how do I use it now? To me, I use it now by doing things like this, holding a space for people to understand their sovereignty, their truth, their power, their ability, their value, their necessity in life, right? All of you are valuable, all of you are necessary, all of you have something to give when it comes to this world of light, right? And sometimes going back to the past to discover the truth, not the history that we've been told, which is all riddles with holes and twisted with lies, but the actual truth. When we start to look at why, the purpose for things, the reason for things, what we end up finding is that a lot of us have come here once again to create a world of light and peace. And the reason why I don't kind of exclusify this to light workers, etc., because to me, regardless of whether there are robot backdrop people or regardless of whether there are soulless people, I'm not going to walk through life with that idea, because I want to approach every single person as though they are a soul of absolute wonder and beauty. And I pause there. I know for you, you're going to say to yourself, James, don't be stupid. There's that many dark people in the world. Give it a rest. Perhaps. But I'm still going to walk through life with the ideas and with the moment of treating everybody with love and compassion until I know any better. And then I'm not going to treat them with violence and aggression. I'm just going to remove myself from that individual so that I no longer have to be around somebody who I feel might be a little bit ingenuine. And ironically, and you guys will know how often I do this, I'd expect you to do exactly the same with me. For those of you that listen to what I have to say, for those of you that read my posts, for those of you that watch my videos, that watch these lives, if you don't resonate, if you think that I'm full of shit, if you think that there's nothing true about what I'm saying and you don't feel what I'm talking about, then I would expect you to leave. I would expect you to not want have anything to do with me. Why? Because that's actually you honouring yourself at the deepest levels. And in theory, that's all I ever want to teach anybody. Right? All I ever want to do is show people how they can honour themselves. That's it. You know, and I've had people in, actually not for a very, very long time, which I'm extremely grateful for, but in a long, long time ago, people say, oh, you're talking shit and all of this, and they leave, and I say, fair enough. That's okay. You know, I don't have to explain myself or why I do what I do. I don't have to, that's okay. Because you're following your heart. You're following your soul. And maybe 6 months down the line, you might think, oh, actually, James was pretty okay. Or 6 months down the line, you say, yes, still a twat. You know, and that's okay. Because let me ask you this. Please, if you have a pen and paper, write this down. How many people that you might listen to get you to question them? For as long as I live, I will never understand why I've never met anybody at this minute who does this. How many people that you listen to get you to question them? I'd like to suggest very few, if any. So the question is, why do I do it? Well, this links to both of these right here. Let me just, there. Future actions, ancient energy. The reason why I get you to question me, because the only real thing that is to move forward in unity in this world is for you to decide for yourself. Because governments, schools, friends, family, peers, teachers, what did they do all your life? They said to you, you have to believe this, this is how it is, and if you don't believe it, get out. Well, I want to share with you, if you don't believe it, fair enough. Okay. If you don't feel it, fair enough. Okay. If you don't enjoy it, fair enough. Okay. Guess what? You leaving and honouring yourself would be the greatest honour and respect I could ever have for you. Because what are you doing? You're doing exactly what I'm trying to teach. Which is to honour yourself. Know your truth, stick by it, stand by it, and walk through this world, I hope, caring and loving for others as much as you would do so yourself. So again, I'd like to suggest that in this moment, the way to fully understand whether you are coming from love and light is to know that as long as you're not directly trying to hurt anybody or trying to attack anybody, then to me, you're coming from love. And what more could anybody ask of you than that? Sorry. So again, before I go back to the comments, because I'm so grateful that all of you are joining me tonight. Thank you all for being here. It really means a lot to me. So for a lot of you who are tuning in, and what was I going to say? To finalise this, it really does come back to understanding that it's time to question. It's time to question the narrative, the past, the things that we're told, the things that we are fed, and it's time to question it in your highest good. Because here's another thing, especially with what's going on at the minute. For a lot of you who are watching this right now, you might have been saying things to friends and family members and saying, hang on a second, something just doesn't add up, right? And they're saying to you, get out, oh, conspiracy theorist, oh, you're dumb, stupid conspiracy theorist, which in itself is insane, by the way, because a conspiracy theorist is somebody who's entertaining the idea of a narrative that's fed to them, right? What am I doing? I'm getting you to question me. Guess what? That's what these governments should be doing. That's what these schools should be doing. Because as much as we try to box things into our labels and say that, yeah, I know it, this is the truth, this is everything, and that's it, I can hold it there, eventually it'll explode out your hands. Because everything's always moving. Everything always has an ulterior perspective. Everything always has a different piece of information over here, a different little bit of information over there. And so, as much as we might try to fit things into those boxes, let the box go. Allow yourself to flow with freedom to explore this life with every facet available to you. Explore this life with every facet available to you. Because throughout everything, I constantly questioned things. As a kid, I now understand why I was the way I was as a kid. I questioned everything. I asked myself, why? Why am I experiencing this? Why am I putting up with this? Why is this my reality? Guess what? Because I questioned it, I'm the man who you see sat in front of you today. And I mean this with love, by the way, so for anybody I know a lot of you question anyway, I'm simply saying this out of pure love, and I hope you feel that. I'm not trying to attack everybody and saying that you're all, I'm just using this as a, as a means of understanding this. Okay. Christy says, but the thing is, if they do, it gets respect, but why, I had a friend attacking me for not getting in line, but the thing is, if they do, it gets respect, but why not the other way around? Would you be able to elaborate on that, Christy, just so that I fully understand what you mean? I think what you mean is that it gets respect if you stay in line. Well, exactly, right? But really, is it not a great deal of respect to honour yourself and your choice? With what's going on in the world. They are targeting people left, right and centre to make sure that they do something. I'm not going to use the words, you can piece it together yourself. They're targeting people left, right and centre. Why are they so desperate? Right? I know a lot of people say, oh, James, it's because of everything that's going on in the world and you've been living under a rock. And no, I haven't actually. All throughout this 2 years that we've been experiencing this, I've lived my life exactly as I lived it before the 2 years that we've been experiencing this. And guess what? I'm still here. Guess what? Not had anything. Why are they so desperate? Why would anybody be so desperate? Am I desperate to give you this information? No. I don't care if you take this or listen to it or not. I'm giving this because it comes from my heart and soul. I'm not desperate. You feeling this? You feeling what I'm sharing here? Why is anybody so desperate? Because let me share something with you. In life, it's more about understanding what it is that makes your soul shine. That's what this life is about. Finding what makes your soul shine. When I was a kid, if there were men who would do ballet, they'd get ripped apart. But guess what? the more you start to explore life and the more you start to understand the finite beauty of art in all of its forms, I can see why a man would want to do ballet, to express his infinite physical strength through an artistic form that is not just masculine but also feminine. Is that not a beautiful way to express art? There are many ways of expressing ourselves, and the key is to find the way that resonates the most with you. And this also comes to when we talk about communities, of which I'll do in just a moment. Let me just do our little greening thing. Let's take a breath as well. And I'll just, yep. So we've gone through that, although we will go through it in a little bit more depth momentarily. Let's go through some of the comments. Excuse me. Christy says, no, the shot, the correct. I totally understand. For the shot, I do agree. Yeah, no, I do get that. I do. I'm sorry, Christy. Now I totally understand where you're coming from. Yeah, absolutely. Well, this is it, isn't it? You know, this is it. This is where it comes down to understanding to honour somebody's decision. And yes, there is a narrative where somebody could take this down and say, what about certain people in jail? Well, they're just honouring their own narrative. Yeah, I get that. And it, you know, again, facets of conversation. It goes much deeper than this. Something we can talk about at another time. But yeah. Mafia says, Mafia says, okay, I'm just going to go up a little bit higher to make sure I get all the comments in. I love that, Andrew. I'm pleased to hear that you're not bullied anymore. That makes me, you know, really, really brings love to my heart. Barb says, everyone is so powerful. We just need to remember who we are. I agree with you. Merlin, my favourite. I love it. Very, very interesting with Merlin and Arthur. That is synchronicity. I love it, Christy. Vicky says, indeed, I love it. Thank you so much. Mafia says, amen. Thank you. I appreciate that. Andrea says, sovereign. Sovereignty as well. Sovereign and sovereignty. Both are the same. I wasn't correcting you. I was just, it jumped into my mind. Andrea, sovereignty is something I absolutely agree with as well. You know, a sovereign heart and to stand for sovereignty is an extremely powerful thing and something that I really do focus on. I appreciate that, Barb. Thank you so much. I appreciate the comment. Christy says, I feel like they don't have to live in the reality we live in. If you look around in your direct environment, there is nothing actually going on. Isn't that beautiful? I totally agree with you. In my external environment, nothing's going on. Right? Right now in this moment, I mean, I can't speak for everybody who's watching, but right now in this moment, for a lot of us, we're just still. Just exploring some ideas, some concepts, some things that might resonate with you and be your truth, you know? So, I agree. Tracy says, well, I appreciate that, Tracy. Thank you for your love. I appreciate that. Bianca says, I love your raw, real way of sharing your truth and incredible unconditional love. I appreciate that. Bianca, thank you as well. Mafia says, master love at all levels. I agree with you, definitely. Barb says, been questioning my entire life. Good. What a self-empowering thing to do. I appreciate you sharing. Christy says, I had a friend. Yeah, we appreciate you, Christy. Sarah says, makes me laugh when they say misinformation. Nope, it's simply information you decide was true. Right? Right? I mean, even going into what we think about gravity, energy, cells, neurons, neutrons, nucleuses of cells. It's all, it's information, and anything exterior to that is misinformation. Is it? Right? Because guess what? Going back to that box analogy, right? Most of science is a theory in certain circumstances. Yes, there is experiments, but even experiments can miss out variables. Even ideas can miss out variables. So is anything really true? The key is follow your heart, follow your soul, and decide what is true for you. I agree with you, Sarah. Barb says, no line for me. I love it. Love it, Christy. Thank you so much. And Mafia says, like we all are, feminine and masculine. I totally agree with you. There was something that we were talking about that I wanted to dive into, but I think it's gone. So another time. Anyway, actually moving on from ancient energy into self-reliance, what I'd actually also like to talk about is in regards to certain things around activations of the past life, right? And I'd like you to write these people down, or these beings, if you have a pen and paper. I'd like you to write down Christ. I want to say Isis or Osiris. I'm learning this now, so bear with me on this. This is something I'm exploring. Mary Magdalene. Morgan Le Fay. King Arthur. And also, and that's it for now. Those are the beings who I'd like you to write down. Why? Why would I like you to write those beings down? Because for a start, a lot of you know that I've been channeling for quite a while now. What is channeling? Channeling is the movement of allowing another energy or consciousness to move into your own so that you can start to share and channel information that is not necessarily directly from your own being, but also from another. Okay, ironically, I did some channeling today, and I've done a lot of channeling, and actually, as these videos go on, I'm not feeling the calling at the minute. If I was going to, I'd have to pull them in. Maybe we'll do it tomorrow. Maybe we'll do some channeling tomorrow. But the art of channeling is bringing through, as I said, information from different consciousnesses. Mary Magdalene has very recently started coming forwards to me. And ironically, from that experience of connecting with her and her essence, and it was extremely vivid, and it has been in some of the activations I've done with people, so energetic activations have been beyond profound. Here's an example. I'm watching a video at the minute to do with Mary Magdalene, somebody who also, or should I say, who walks with that consciousness and works with it. They described an Egyptian activation that I did only 2 to 3 days before with a friend of mine, exactly as I did it, and I'd never heard of it before. So why am I sharing this? Because ancient energy, when you start to connect, when you start to open yourself, and by the way, when it comes to consciousnesses from the past, it's not exclusive, right? It isn't exclusive. You can connect to that if you set the intention and if you start to understand about your internal intentions. So let me just clear this up. If you set your intention to connect with a being and then you work on your intentions, for example, mine is to be humble, to love, to hold a safe space, to hold a sacred space, to provide love and information that will empower other people to know their own truth, right? Those are my intentions. So I'm more vibrationally compatible to open up to these other consciousnesses because of what I'm choosing to do. So, let me just reiterate this. I myself am not exclusively connected to any beings. It's not that I'm connected and you can't connect. That's not what it's about. I'm connected because I've set the intention and I've worked on my personal intentions. If you have a pen and paper, please write this down. Because this is a very powerful way that you can start to, over time, open yourself up as well. So, coming back to these activations that have started coming forwards, I mean, I've done activations with people for a good couple of years now, and some of them have been so profound, I wouldn't even know where to begin to tell you what happened, because my consciousness didn't even understand it in the beginning myself. But as we begin to understand what is happening in the world and why the light is so necessary, these energies are starting to come forwards more. What is energy? What do people mean by portal and energy and light codes? What they mean is vibration, consciousness, right? Vibration, consciousness. It isn't so much a magical fairy realm of something you can't see or perceive. It's very perceivable. It's all around you. It's all around you in the form of electromagnetic energy. It's all around you in the form of the ether. It's all around you in the form of light that is around you, right? Everything around you is a physical representation of light. So, ancient energies can start to be channeled through certain individuals and certain beings. And I do, if the individual is in the right state of mind or the right place, I can actually do those ancient activations. So if anybody is interested, of course, to support myself, you're welcome to have a session with me like that, but it's not necessary. It's only if you feel the calling, but I do those. And the purpose, ultimately, of whether you do it with me or find a way to do it through your own consciousness, it's to stir or embody. And here I'm going to do this up so you see over here. It is to bring forward ultimate self-reliance. Because the more you connect with every facet of yourself, the more you embody the power, strength, conviction, and love to support this world in the way that it needs it the most. So remember, when people talk about light codes, energy, and energy this, and vibration that, and whatever, what's the purpose? Self-reliance. Self-reliance, self-empowerment, unconditional love, unity, free will, and walking through this world with the ability to express your soul in its full capacity, in its full ability, its full potential, its fullness. Please, if you have a pen and paper, write this down. The ultimate reason for any activation, for any channeling, any version of anything that you class as spiritual or metaphysical, is to bring you self-reliance. For you to walk through this world, to fulfill your mission, to fulfill your purpose, to go out there and do what it is that ignites your soul. Right? And I'm not talking about, if it's working a 9 to 5, fair enough. But I know a lot of you that are working a 9 to 5, you don't want to work a 9 to 5 because it doesn't bring your soul that calling. And I'm here to tell you that you can find it. And you will find it. Okay? You can find it. And you will find it. So, do you know what, guys? I think that I'll go through the last... let's have a look here. Just to make sure. Andrew says they're desperate because they want the future their way. I totally agree with you. Christy says Christ consciousness. I agree. I love it. So says Morgan Le Fay was one of my favourite books as a kid. I love it. The name of I'll actually have a look. I'll see if that's still available. Had a QHHT session that brought me to King Arthur and Merlin. I love it, Bob. Christy says I do not so much connect with beings. I travel out of body and visit people in meditation. Absolutely, and that's one of your abilities. And if you if you continue to nurture that ability, who knows what could come from it, right? This is the power of really starting to have a look at abilities. And they're not gifts. I really quickly shifted that word. They're not gifts or abilities, because anybody can work on an ability. You know, that's the beauty of it. The Upper Room. I got to get that movie and watch it again. Oh, wow, interesting. I didn't even know that was a movie. I'll have to look at it myself. Sarah says the movie's called Life for those who haven't watched it. Interesting. I'll have to have a look at that. But anyway, guys, as I say, and actually, if it's okay, I'm just going to do this as well. This is just something because of the times we're in, and if you would like to do so, it would honour me on the highest levels. But I am going to pop my PayPal link into the comments. If you'd like to support me with what I'm doing, I would appreciate that beyond imagine. Please, it's not necessary. I didn't do this for the money. As we're transitioning into a new world, which I hope would be a world where money is no longer necessary, because if you think about it, I can't imagine a world where money is actually a fair exchange of soul and consciousness. But whilst you're in this position, if you'd like to, it would be the greatest honour to me, and I appreciate it immensely. You don't have to. I'll leave that with you. And I hope that you enjoyed this live tonight. I hope that it gave you something to think about. Or if you resonate with the whole of it and you do it anyway, then my heart goes out to you. I'm extremely grateful for you and who you are as a person. And if not, don't worry. You know, that's what this is about. There's no need to do or be anything other than yourself. Right? And whoever you decide to be, whoever you choose to be, should be met with love. In all cases, but if you can do it without hurting other people, that's the new world. Right? To me, that's the new world. So listen, guys, thank you so much for being with me tonight. I appreciate you immensely. I might even go live again tomorrow. So if you are interested in any topics, feel free to share them with me, and perhaps we can start discussing some topics even more collectively. But like I say, Shell, thank you so much for being here. Christy, Sarah, Paul, Vicky, Barb. Let's have a look here. Andrew, Mafia, Sarah, Bianca, Tracy, Andrea, everybody who's tuned in. Anya, if you're still here, thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me. And everybody who just watched and didn't comment, thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much. Please never forget that. Every human being who sits and stands with me watching this stuff, it means a lot to me. So thank you for being here. My deepest love to you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye, guys.